Hi, I'm Angus Taylor and welcome to today's Tech Talk. I'm really delighted to be here today with Peter Norvig, who is Director of Research at Google. Welcome, Peter.
Great to be here, Angus. Thank you.
Peter, as the Head of Research at Google, can you tell us something about how you use data to innovate and deliver better products and services at Google?
Everything we do is based on data and based on continual improvement. So we're always trying to keep track of how our services are doing, look at how our users are responding, and then make continual improvements. Look at the results. Can we come up with something better? And improve what we have, and then try to invent new services and products as well.
And how quickly do you try and do that? Do you try and cycle that through at a rapid pace?
We certainly do. So, every day we're running dozens or hundreds of experiments for ideas to do something new, and not all of them make it, but we're making changes every day.
Right, so the key is experiment and keep the stuff that works.
Right, and don't worry about failure, but keep going ahead fast.
Right. Now, one of the issues there is you are using a lot of data, and it's customer data in many cases. How do you maintain trust with your users, with your customers?
Trust is really crucial, and we have to guarantee that we're going to be great shepherds for their data. First is understanding that it is theirs, it's not ours. They're entrusting us with it. But it belongs to them. And that means we're not going to give it away to anybody, we're not going to sell it to anybody, and we're going to do world-class defense against anybody hacking into it, and we're going to help our customers with that as well. So we've gone beyond just simple passwords to having multi-factor identification to make it safer for them. And then we also give them confidence by saying, you know what, we're happy to serve you, but if you're not happy, we want to make it easy for you to take your data with you.
Right.
So we have services to say, if you want to take the data someplace else, you want to leave us completely, or you want to be in two places at once, we'll make it really easy for you to get your data out.
Right. Now, one older way of creating trust was through long, incomprehensible user agreements, but transparency is another way. Can you tell us about what you do to make your approach and the way you use data more transparent to users?
So we try to explain to people what we're doing, and we try to do that in terms they can understand rather than in terms lawyers can understand. And when we make changes, we try to highlight that. And
transparency in how that data is used, what do you do? How can I see how Google is using my data?
That's in the terms, and we like to give explanations for why it's there, what we can do with it, and why you might want to have us have that data or not. And we certainly give you options. So, for example, if you use the search and you log in and you say, keep my search history, then we'll do that, and we'll explain to you that there's some benefits you get. So one is you could search over your search history and say, what was that query I was doing a week ago? I forget exactly what the terms were.
Right.
You could go back and find it.
Right, and that's a trivia. I've used that many times.
You've used that many times. And also, if you're logged in and you give us permission to track, then we can start personalizing and give you better results that are personalized to you.
Right.
But if you decide you don't want that, you don't want to log in, you want the searches to not be associated with your account, then you can do that too. It's up to you.
Now, you're a global expert in artificial intelligence, and predictive algorithms are an important part of your work, as I understand it.
Yep.
Can you tell us something about how you're using or could use predictive algorithms to improve economic and social outcomes?
So we like to provide new products, and we're providing goods for our users, and we're getting to the point where we're doing things that they could never do before, right? And so I know, for me, as an amateur photographer, boy, I've wasted countless hours sorting through pictures and putting them into folders and labeling them with keywords.
Yep.
And now I can just throw them all into Google Photos, and it does all that labeling for me automatically, right? So that's a small thing. We're also saying, we built all these capabilities to do object recognition in pictures, to do machine translation, to do speech recognition, and so on. And we incorporate them into our own products, but we also want to let other people use them. So we've built these services where you, as a small company, may not have the expertise to do that yourself. You can call in to our services and say, tell me what's in this picture, recognize this speech.
And what about government, Peter? How could government use these sorts of predictive algorithms?
Right. Government could certainly participate in the same way if that made sense for them. They could call into you with our data. And of course, government has its own data. And they could be looking at the kinds of things we're doing, see if they can duplicate that. And I think government should also be thinking about the whole ecosystem, right? So governments collect data and they've shown that they're good stewards for it, but they don't have to do all the analysis. They could just make it possible for others to do the analysis. So, you know, popularize the fact I've got this data here and say who wants to do something useful with it.
And what would be an illustration of an area where that could really have a positive impact?
I spoke with a group in the U.S. That's working on making it easier to access government services that have long and complicated forms, right? When we had things like the Veterans Administration form where veterans should get their benefits, but a large percent of them were dropping out because the forms were too complicated and they didn't finish them. And so a third-party nonprofit stepped in and said, instead of these long forms that you fill out paper and you can only hand them in at this office between 7 and 9 o'clock on Tuesdays, we're going to have a phone app. It's going to be much simpler. You can go through step by step, and it greatly increased the completion process.
Well, as the world's worst form filler, I would really love some kind of help like that.
And so government didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
They just had to say, we're going to accept these forms, and you can fill them in this other way rather than in the traditional way.
What limitations do you need to be careful of when you're using these sorts of algorithms?
So one is, you know, you hear this maxim of garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you built a system based on data and you have the wrong data, then it's going to produce the wrong answers. So that's something to worry about. It could be completely wrong, or it could be biased in a way that you don't want it to be. Right? So there are biases in the real world, and if your data comes from the real world, unless you're careful, it's going to pick up some of those biases. And so you have to protect against that.
Now, as a government, we have a real focus on data integration and analysis. Can you tell us what Google has learned that we might learn from as the Australian government in that area?
Move quickly, make it easy for people to try new ideas. You know, you certainly have to be careful of what you do, and so we try not to tell our employees what to do, but say, go out and surprise us and come up with something interesting. Of course, we also put processes in place where not anybody can look at any data. You have to, there's need to know, and there's anonymization and all that. But we just try to set a direction of saying we're trying to help our users. We want to go in this general direction, but we're not going to have a step-by-step plan on how to go there. We're going to let people experiment and come up with their own ideas.
And just your own employees, or do you effectively allow third-party researchers who are appropriately qualified to do that sort of work?
So if it's user data, then only our employees can see that. We can't let anybody who's not our employee see user data. But there's other types of data, like data we might have collected off the web, that we can supply that to third-party researchers.
Traffic data, for instance?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. That's not personally identifiable. That would be fine, and we do a lot of sponsoring of university research for people to look at those kinds of things.
Now, one of the things we're particularly interested in using longitudinal data sets, that over time. Yeah. Can you tell me something about how Google uses those sorts of data sets to improve products and services?
Because we are so worried about the personally identifiable data, we tend not to do a lot with longitudinal studies of, say, your search history. Because we don't want to know, right? Because it would be too dangerous for that to leak out. There are other places where we do have longitudinal data. We're working with a company called Planet, which is trying to take pictures of the Earth every spot, every day. And you can use that to track a lot of different things. So for agriculture, what do things look like? For figuring out economic indicators, what parts of what cities are growing faster.
So what would be an agricultural example, for instance, of how that
is it green or brown? Has there been more rain?
Is there a cropping?
Yeah, or are people cutting down trees?
Yeah.
And so we can track that on a day-by-day basis.
Fantastic. Well, look, Peter, thank you so much. We really appreciate you spending this time with us today.
Pleasure
Fantastic
talking with
to hear about what you're doing at Google.
Thank you.